Welcome to a football show Friday edition. I do apologize about the Friday and being a few minutes late. Had some family stuff going on yesterday, so do apologize about that. That is Nick Suss of the Tennessean. I am Braden Gall, and we are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. I got more information about a big party coming up for all you Sinkers Beverages fans. Going to be a lot of fun. Actually, multiple parties, Nick. Parties on parties on parties.
That's I don't know. United States politics, multiple parties.
Well, actually, there's just two, so yes, it is. It's
perfect. Yeah.
No, two parties and two parties. So we'll have some fun today. We're going to do some debating today on the show, but not in the way that I think you might want, or excuse me, might think. Hopefully, you want to hear Nick's opinion on the 12 most unwinnable, historic, hotly contested. Give me some hyperbolic explanation of our topic today, Nick.
These are the unsolved, unanswerable arguments you've had about the Titans for the last 27 years. You're standing in the bar and you just pick a fight about the Titans. It's one of these fights. And you know what? Let's just pretend this is talk radio through the years. That was kind of my idea of let's go back to 2003. What were they yelling about in the summer of 03? Let's go back to 2009. What were they yelling about in the summer of 09? We're going to yell about all of those things today. And it's hopefully going to be a lot of fun.
There you go. Ed, welcome to the comments, Ed. And so what we're going to do, we have 12 discussions. We're going to go as quickly as possible through all of them. Probably try to hit them for 4 or 5 minutes. If one is longer, then that will tell us something. And of course, what we're going to do is at the end, if we missed one of the debates that you have long argued with your friends or family or media members, please present those in the comments. If you are watching on YouTube, that's the best place to do that, of course. Notifications turned on, thumbs up, give us a like, give us a share. Get some folks in here. Again, I know I had an emergency with my daughter yesterday. Everything's good. Everything's fine. But we had to push off the show yesterday to today. So hopefully everybody can matriculate on in here and we can have some fun. If you're on Twitter, of course, share the product, Facebook, and podcast app of choice. Write a review. Just write all the nice things about Sus. You can insult me. It's totally fine. I'm comfortable with that. All right. So quickly here before we do that, I do want to talk about August 9th. Well, how about this? The two parties. August 9th is going to be one of them. The other one is tomorrow night, Friday night at Jasper's on West End, the next evolution of the sports bar. For you Predators fans, if you want to come out, we're going to have drinks and appetizers, and we're going to watch the first round of the NHL draft. So come on out. A couple of free drinks, some free food. Going to be a lot of fun. Going to be hanging out. Got the game room over there, free parking. It's a great central location. So come on out Friday night. We start about 5:30. Excuse me. Did I say tomorrow night? Did I say what I said?
Tonight.
It is tonight.
Yeah.
Because this is not a Thursday show. It's a Friday show. You could tell this week has been crazy. We had lice and a trip to the emergency room. And those were separate incidents, Nick, this week.
Spectacular.
I did not have lice because I'm a male. And apparently lice hate testosterone. And apparently I'm not worried about my testosterone levels because I don't have lice, even at 42. So coming up tonight at Jasper's, we're going to have a great get-together. And we're going to watch the Preds have 3 first-round draft picks. We'll see what else happens. But 3 first-round draft picks. And then coming up on August 9th, tickets are only $10. Sinkers Beverages 40th birthday party at Basement East. Going to be free. There's going to be food. There's going to be music. There's going to be vinyl. There's going to be giveaways. There's going to be raffles. There's going to be drinks. And $10 gets you in, and all that money goes to charity. So it's a charity event and a celebration of a local company that does great work in the community. And they got great merch as well. So, all right. You can see the first 6 topics if you're watching on YouTube below us. I hope people are already anticipating some of these topics. Some of these I think will go quicker than others, Nick, because
for those of you watching, I have a 5-minute timer set.
All right, good.
I will play this PTI style. You can pick who's Kornheiser, who's Wilbon. When the timer goes off, I will say we're done. If we want to keep going, we can keep going, but I will try and be a stickler about this. Okay. Let's move our way through these.
Let's
topics.
Do well. Let's do well. Josh says is not getting lice. The opposite of toxic masculinity.
It is your masculinity being toxic to lice.
Yeah, which is in this case great.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to do anything, as the other 3 members of my family had to do a lot of effort this week. Anyway, all right, let's get started here. I want to see how this goes. Do you have the timer ready to go?
I do.
All right, here we go. PTI style 12 hottest debates in Titans history. Number 1.
Start.
Was it a lateral? Go.
Probably not, right? Like I've seen the science, I've seen like I can use my eyes. It doesn't matter. It's the coolest thing that's ever happened in Titans history. But like, are we really going to sit here and say we definitely know for certain that was backwards? I don't think we can say that with certainty. Do you?
The only thing that matters is the ruling on the field.
Yeah.
And this was not, I don't think replay was around at that time, was it? Maybe it was. I don't think it was. The only thing that matters, let's say hypothetically it's 2025. We would have more camera angles. That'd be higher definition. That'd be 4K. And I still don't think you'd be able to overturn the ruling on the field, no matter which direction the ruling on the field went. And had they ruled it a forward pass, I don't think you could have overturned it. Have they ruled it a lateral, I don't think they could have overturned it. I think it was as straight down the line as you could probably get. But it doesn't matter because you can't overturn it if it was ruled on the field as a lateral. So there you go.
Yeah, again, as Steven's referring to in the comments, I've seen the CGI animations. I've seen the rebuilding the formulas. It is one of the strangest camera angles in football history. Like, I've watched that replay 10,000 times. I'm sure we all have. It is so impossible to formulate a full opinion. Because every time you watch something new, you're like, you can talk yourself into anything. I've been watching this play since I was 5-6 years old. It is what it is. It is a pass that went to a place. I believe that where Dyson caught it was in front of where Wycheck threw the ball.
His feet or the ball?
His feet.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Where was the ball?
No one will ever know.
No one will know because that camera angle is so specifically strange. Does it matter? Of course not. Again, it's the coolest moment in Titans history. But yeah, it probably wasn't a textbook lateral if I'm willing to shove a trident in the sand.
I think the best you can hope for if you're a Titans fan is that it was perfectly perpendicular to the field, up and down the field, like north-south. And if it was perfectly perpendicular or parallel to the yard marker, I guess I should say, perfectly parallel, that's a fair play. But I think that's the best you can hope for. It's definitely not clearly backwards. It's definitely not clearly backwards.
But like it's the old standard about if it's cool, it should count. It was close enough that it should count no matter what. Even if the ruling on the field was forward pass, it was too cool. It's cool.
If a half second or if a last second heave from half court goes in and you're doing the whole like, did the shot clock or did the game clock go off right as the ball leaves the fingertips, but you make a 50-footer to win the game, just let it count.
Yeah. Cool things should count. We got about 2 minutes left. You got more to say? Or you want to
No. Let's save some time. We're 2 minutes in the bank here. All right. Topic number 2, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages, the Tennessean and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue on the 440 Media Network.
Start.
Number 2. Now, this is complicated. Was there another way to solve and save the A.J. Brown Tennessee Titans relationship? Could the Titans have re-signed A.J. Brown?
I'll let you start on this one.
I think they could have done anything they wanted to do. I think they could have given him a ton of money. I don't know. I think fans are too quick to say that automatically is the right decision. I think they had questions about his knee. They had questions about his health. They had questions about his focus in football. As he's reading, philosophy books on the sidelines of playoff games. And having talked to AJ a few times, like, I understood where his focus and his brain was. So I guess I understood the concerns, but you could have given him enough money to maybe the most talented athlete outside of Derrick Henry to ever play in a Titans uniform. I think they could have solved the problem. And I think it was the end of the beginning of the end for all of them. So it might not be as hotly contested as Titans fans might want it to be or not want it to be. I think they absolutely could have re-signed him. I think they absolutely could have come to an agreement. Now, the question is, does that make AJ happy? Is he fully focused? Is he fully healthy in Nashville, Tennessee, where he clearly wanted to be in a bigger market on a better team? I don't know. That I can't answer.
Are the Titans not a better team if he's the one that gets re-signed also is the question. Like, you still need a quarterback. You still have to figure out who's throwing him the ball long-term. And you still have to figure out if the offense that he was in, if you're going into the Todd Downing era and all this stuff, like, there are clearly a lot of factors that lead to whether or not the Titans' success would have continued had AJ stayed. But if you run things back in 2022, you have to imagine that a core of Tannehill, Brown, Henry would have been relatively successful as they were in 2021 when they won 12 games. You figure out how to make it work. You pay him enough money. I feel like there are 31 other teams in the NFL that understand that at that time. And I feel like if you know, as the Titans, if you have the crystal ball and you can say, oh, we're going to end up giving this kind of money to Calvin Ridley anyway, you don't even think about it. You find a way to make the deal work.
What was the contract? $75 million for the Eagles? Am I right on that? I'm just guessing.
I think you're right. Yeah, somewhere around that. It's about 25. The original contract he signed was about 25 a year, and I think he's gotten an extension now that gets him up closer to 30.
He has missed 5 total games in 3 years, and I agree with Eddie. This all hinges on the knee. If J-Rob's doctors had been right, he looks like a genius. The docs were wrong. Now, what's fascinating is that he also had like the weird personality stuff off the field. I'm not saying weird like in a bad way. I'm just saying it was different. He's a unique creature. And the Instagram live stuff from the hospital room. Like, what's fascinating is that would be normally things that would rub Vrabel the wrong way. But he was the one pissed that they traded A.J. Brown because he recognized the talent. So there you go.
Like, if we're playing devil's advocate of why you move on because we all thought Treylon Burks was the next A.J. Brown. Like, we all kind of believed that. And let's not play revisionist history that none of us thought that.
I love the pick. Everybody
was making the comparison. And everybody was saying, oh, you're getting younger, you're getting cheaper, you're doing this. This is a very suave move or a good foresight move to replace somebody that could be difficult in the locker room with somebody who could just be a younger version of it. Obviously, that has not worked out. And we talk about it hinging on the knee. If Treylon turned out to be a perennial 1,000-yard receiver, you're also lauded for this pick. Like, it's. Oh, you think there would be the same uproar, Ed? You think that people would still be as furious?
Maybe that was the question. What was that? Would there be the same uproar? No, I don't think he even has to be A.J. Brown good, which is, kind of all pro-ish, right? Like, I think if he's just like 65 catches for 1,000 yards and six or seven touchdowns, I don't think we're having the same reaction because you're getting almost equal production that A.J. Brown did deliver, by the way. His numbers are way better in Philadelphia, by the way, than they were here in Nashville. You're getting almost similar production at like a tenth of the cost. Yeah. So there is plenty of football logic to this. And yes, I will put my hand up and say, look, I don't like the trade. I don't like the move. Only time will tell if it's the right thing based on medical history and sort of his behavior. It was wrong. It was the wrong move. They should have re-signed him. And part of this fun exercise that we're doing today on the show is that hindsight allows us to have clearer arguments than when these arguments were sort of taking place. And so I think it was way more 50-50 than people realized. I do think the folks that were convicted in saying you have to pay the most talented player we've ever had at this position, it is a mistake to let him go. That group was right.
I think that is fair. And also, if you look at the way the markets have moved at receiver in just the 3 years since, the deal you would have paid him if you offered him 22 would still be a steal for that guy's talents. Yeah, that's 5 minutes.
All right, and we're done. All right, this is maybe my favorite debate, possibly my favorite debate, and that is, and I used to get in this, so Derek Mason and I hosted a show on 102.5 for many years together, and he and I totally disagree on this. He thinks that the Titans and Oilers record books should be joined together, that they are one franchise, that they are one thing. Now, legally, that is the case. Of course, if you don't know, Bud Adams negotiated the rights to the merchandise, the logos, the record books, and everything when he left town. That was part of his parting gift from the city of Houston. They said, fine, take it and GTFOH. And so that's why this has happened. Derek Mason believes that should stay intact. I personally find it very strange to say who's the greatest Titan of all time, and the answer is Warren Moon or Earl Campbell. I just, that doesn't sit well with me. Just from like a cleanliness standpoint, I think you can separate them and still keep them kind of in the same legal entity, the Tennessee Titans ownership group. I think they have to be separated. The receivers and Earl, I don't know. The Browns and the Ravens did this. The Colts and the Ravens did it differently. Well, I guess it was Colts and before that. It's just, I think they should be separate, and Derek Mason disagrees with me. So if you're on Derek's team, you guys are, he's got more equity in this game than I do.
So to be clear, you're not advocating that the Houston Oilers records should belong to the Texans. You are just saying they should be in a bucket of their own. They are Houston Oilers records.
The Houston Oilers, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, the official barbecue of the Houston Oilers, he has no home to root for his team. He doesn't like the Texans, but he doesn't like the Titans. They're not the Texans. The Texans record book should start in 2002 and be their own record book. And the Tennessee Titans should have their own record book, and the Houston Oilers should be this mythical record book that just floats around in the ether for all of time.
So I'm curious where you draw the line on this, because let's use the Raiders, for example. Let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. Should they, because they never changed their mascot name, retain the records that they had in Oakland and Los Angeles? Or are the Las Vegas Raiders their own entity?
I think because the brand never changed, much like how the Browns repopulated itself as the Browns, right? Like they came back and they just adopted the old record book. I think if you were the same brand, and because there's no new team cropping up where they used to be, there's no new Oakland, made up new franchise. I feel more comfortable saying keep it all together. If you're not going to change the brand, I think you can keep them together.
So what do you do with the Los Angeles Raiders records then? Because there are two new teams in Los Angeles.
I think the Raiders being an OG franchise, like pretty early on, and kind of continuing in the same area with their own brand, I think it's just a little. I kind of think every case is kind of unique.
But that's an impossible thing to judge. Like you can't say that every case is unique, so therefore we have to grade it uniquely. That's just not true. There are so many instances across professional sports where a team has left and a new team has cropped up. The Milwaukee Braves and the Milwaukee Brewers come to mind. The Winnipeg Jets existing 3 separate times comes to mind. Like there are so many things.
But all the Jets record books stay the Jets.
I don't think that's actually true. The NHL has a weird policy. Maybe it's the Utah team that they've completely the Phoenix Coyotes are doing what you're advocating of. They are just frozen in time. That record book exists as
same ownership group. So very similar to the Oilers and Titans.
Yeah. So I don't know. I personally think that if you don't have a Super Bowl, it doesn't matter fundamentally, because all this we're just squabbling over like sports talk bull crap. Like who is the best Oiler versus Titan ever is just fun, like banter. Unless we're genuinely talking about like who did the Super Bowl belong to? The 1999 Super Bowl. Should that belong to the LA Rams because it was won by the St. Louis Rams? Like that matters to me because I care about.
It's the same organization. It's the organization that is the same, not the city or the location. They have the same brand and the same owner and the same organization. It's the same people. It's the business entity has not changed. It's just where they're located.
And that's also true of the Titans. The business entity has not changed.
True.
You just named it something different. So, look, are we?
You haven't also raised one of the most important points, which is what do you do with the people who played for both?
Yeah,
including some of the most important and timeless players of all time.
Yeah, we don't have time to get into the argument about like the Ravens and Browns, but I think that's where you have to start with this conversation all the time. Because if the NFL ruled that the Browns got to keep their own branding when they moved back in, then the Texans have a really solid argument. That doesn't mean it's right because again, different ownership, but the Browns are a different ownership group. Like it is messy that these two things were legislated differently.
Yeah.
And that is never going to be reconciled.
Let me ask you this then. Had Bud Adams not negotiated the rights to the Oilers merchandise, do they relaunch as the Oilers?
I think they would try. I think they would have tried.
Instead of the Texans?
I think they would have tried.
I think so too. I think they would have come back and gone baby blue and done the whole thing. So, all right, let's move on. This one is also something that I dealt with on the radio when I was hosting the show, and that is Marcus Mariota. I think he is a fascinating character in the Titans story. The question, was Marcus Mariota a good quarterback?
I'm working on a project about Titans history that's probably going to come out in about 2 weeks. You guys should keep an eye out for it. I've spent a lot of time going through Titans archives, Titans record books, rewatching the best moments, rewatching the low moments of Titans history. And as I watched that Mariota era, the one thing that keeps creeping into my mind is, man, I didn't remember how good he was in 2015, 16.
Yeah.
Like
he was very good.
I think when we talk about Mariota, we're thinking about that 17 season into the playoffs. And then we're talking about 18, 19 when things kind of slowed down or went sour. Pre-injury Mariota, I think was on pace to be every bit as good as any pretty good quarterback we've seen in the NFL in the last 12 years.
Okay.
By that standard, yes, he was pretty good. Was he ever going to be guy who takes a team to the promised land? I don't think so. But he probably... Let me phrase the question this way before you get into your argument. If he doesn't break his leg in 2016, is he still the Titans quarterback today?
I don't think it's the leg. I think it's the arm.
You do?
I think it's the nerve damage in the arm that totally screwed him up. And I think it changed him. Now Koharski will tell you, who might be listening to this, like, he also didn't evolve from a personality standpoint to take on more things and be more of something or whatever. Look, I think I think as time goes on, people are going to value his contribution to the franchise more. I think his legacy will age better than it was when he was being yelled at and told that he was terrible, that Ryan Tannehill needs to come in. Because here was my argument on the radio, and I'll still think this is correct. There was nothing in Ryan Tannehill's performance in the NFL in Miami that indicated he was going to be better than Marcus Mariota. There was nothing there.
Yeah.
And the argument that people have when they step in and they say, oh, Tannehill was obviously going to be the better quarterback. No. Ryan Tannehill was a below average starting quarterback for Miami. He had like one half good season where they kind of made the playoffs. And he had statistically totally anomalies in his season and 2/3 for the Tennessee Titans. Mariota also was totally flawed. But he took the greatest increase in franchise history for the Tennessee Titans happened because Marcus Mariota was the quarterback. One of the most entertaining victories I have ever seen in the playoffs by the Tennessee Titans was because of Marcus Mariota and Derrick Henry. And so I just don't think you can remove his contribution from this era. I think
sure, but I think that's immaterial to the argument of was he good or was he a hog? Yeah.
I think it was a good quarterback, maybe slightly better. I think somebody used the Andy Dalton comparison. I think that's fair. I think that's right. He was never elite. He was never great, but he was a pretty good quarterback. And I think a very valuable quarterback to the franchise. I think that's my point, is that I view good and value as synonymous. I think they're both there. So I think what happened down in Miami with the arm and the elbow and the nerve damage and the injuries and the, I think all of that is totally fair criticism, fair criticism. I don't think he got much help with offensive coordinators to some degree. But I think in 15, 16, and 17, pretty damn good player and changed the direction of the franchise. And then after that, totally fair to criticism.
And there's also the question we can ask, which pure revisionism of, was it a square peg round hole situation? Did they ever play the offense that suited his skill sets? And Zach, you're right. 17 wasn't that great either. Like sincerely, it was those first 2 years were pretty good.
As time goes on, no one's going to think about Mario.
Well, that's just not true, because Titans fans are still talking about Billy Volek. Like, we'll talk about anybody. We don't have too much to talk about.
It's June. We're talking Kerry Collins.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that when you think about Marcus Mariota, if you think about the discrete moments, the game against Jacksonville, week 17 in 2017, one of the most joyous moments, if you're a Titans fan, of probably the last 15 years. The playoff win a couple of weeks later, I guess the next week, another incredibly joyous moment. The debut against Tampa, like, there's a lot of good to think about, but you also have to remember how it ended. And the last 2.5 to 3 years he was there, he was probably a below average quarterback. I think that's a fair way to describe it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I took my daughter to her first Green Bay Packers football game in 2016. She was like maybe 5 weeks old, and my wife hated the entire thing. Marcus Mariota, 73% completion percentage, 95 yards passing, 4 touchdown passes. And I think he broke off a long running play in that one as well. That was one of the best performances I've seen Marcus Mariota ever play, and it was in front of all of my family. Yeah. So, all right. Next one here. Should the Titans have fired Mike Vrabel?
Hindsight or in the moment?
Both.
In the moment, I did not believe so. In the moment, I thought it was a very bad decision. Hindsight, I don't know. Look, the number one rule of making a coaching change, and we'll talk about this again in our second block of 6 topics, because something else will come up similar. Mm-hmm. The number one rule of making a coaching change is don't fire a guy unless you know you can get somebody better. I did not at the moment, looking at the clear-cut list of candidates available, believe that the Titans could absolutely get somebody better than Mike Vrabel. And based on the results we've had a year and a half into the Callahan era, I still don't know that I can say authoritatively the Titans upgraded after firing him. So based off of that one rationale, no, it probably did not make a mistake. It probably did not make sense to downgrade based off of the success Vrabel had had. But here is the fundamental question. The roster was going down. The roster was going to be bad no matter what. The question is, do you think the roster would have improved at the rate commensurate to what you need to do to get competitive again had Vrabel stuck around? Or would you have ended up just firing him the next year?
Those words are too big for this argument. I do think this is an way more complicated than the average probably person spends time thinking about this.
Yeah.
In the moment, I thought it was short-sighted and quick-twitched. I thought it was an overreaction. I think right now it's pretty clear that Mike Vrabel is a better coach than Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan has an opportunity to disprove that very quickly. And is he modernizing the offensive scheme and identity for the Tennessee Titans that this franchise was in desperate need of? Yes, absolutely. I think there's no question about that. And you don't have the Brinker-Borgonzi brain trust if you believe in those two guys rebuilding the roster, to your point. You probably do not have those two guys if you keep Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what happens with Rand Carthon. I don't know if they could go, Adam Peters wasn't coming here. Do they go get, hire one of his inside guys, whether it's Cowden or Austin Ford or whoever it might have been? If they could get one of those guys, I do think they could have rebuilt the roster, because I think Mike Vrabel's a very good football coach. So, but I also agree with some of the commenters on this, which is sometimes you just have to make a change and people need a fresh start.
Yeah.
So I don't think this one actually is as clear cut. I do think the Cam Ward, Borgonzi, Brian Callahan trio is going to do more to decide that debate than anything else. Yeah. If it works out, and even if they're just average, like let's say they have winning records most seasons and they go to the playoffs, let's say half the time, I think you have to say, okay, that was a risky but okay move. Now, if Mike Vrabel goes and wins 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots,
yeah,
he also can change this conversation as well.
Yes, that's one of the factors that's always going to be difficult, is watching the Titans parallel to watching Vrabel. Because, the Patriots roster has improved. It is still not like superstar laden. It is just a better roster. And Vrabel has had a lot of success with rosters that are simply pretty good. So I don't think anybody would be surprised if the Patriots are good. But is there a ceiling to building a roster around a coach who takes good to pretty good instead of just building a great roster, which is what the Titans are trying to do now? It's just tough. It's really hard.
If you're gonna spend some time dogging on Mariota like Zach has done, which again is totally fine. I'm just giving him a hard time. Then you have to acknowledge Mike Vrabel has the best quarterback of his coaching career today.
Probably. I think that's probably fair.
And I think they are the most improved team in the AFC this year.
Could be.
So now it doesn't take much to go from really awful to average. So Titans are trying to do the same thing. So, all right. Anything else? I think it's one of the more interesting and more complicated sort of decisions that the organization has ever made. And I don't think we have the answer yet, honestly.
I guess I'll phrase it this way, just as the last question. If he didn't get fired after 23, do you think he would have been fired after 24?
I mean, it's a counterfactual, but
I know it is, but that's just kind of what we have to think about.
I think he would have done. I think they would have gotten better.
You do,
but a lot
I think
of
they would have gotten worse in 24.
And maybe you're right, but a lot of it is based on who he's been partnered with. And if they were going to keep Rand another year and partner Vrabel, that was not a good marriage for either party, for Rand or for Mike. And so you're never going to find success if you can't put the right people together. I think if they fire John Robinson and hire Monty Ossenfort, I think the Titans get better.
Fair.
Or Ryan Cowden, for that matter. Okay. All right. Last one on the first half here. Go to Sinkers Beverages. Buy some tickets. You can go to the Basement East August 9th, the 40th anniversary party. $10 tickets get you in. You get free. You get food. You get drinks. You get giveaways, raffles. There's a giveaway where you can go on a barrel pick with us to Kentucky and taste all the different barrels, pick the one you want that Sinkers then brings back to the store a couple of months later. It is one of the coolest giveaways we have ever done for this company. Zach was with me when we took Tim and Joe on this trip up to Wild Turkey to pick a Russell's Reserve. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. So make sure you go to the party. Buy a $10 ticket. All the money goes to charity. We're just going to celebrate and have fun coming up in a few Saturdays, I guess, after Titans camp opens. So, by the way, July 23rd, it'll start. We've got those dates in stone now. So, otherwise, come swing by and buy some tickets and come hang out. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll be at Jasper's tonight, Friday night. If you're listening to this in time, we'll be there for the first round of the NHL draft. If you want to come by and hang out, we're gonna have some drinks and some apps and watch some hockey draft picks and have some fun. And of course, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, 11 to 3 Wednesday through Sunday. The best brisket in the city, and the only mechanical bull at a barbecue joint in Nashville. So there you go.
Good to know.
Unsure why you'd want to pound down a rack of ribs and then go try the mechanical bull. That doesn't seem like a good combination, but you can. And I'd like to watch you try, Nick.
I would fail. I'm too long.
All right. Best running back in franchise history is
Chris Johnson. No, it's not. But I'm going to say it is for the sake of the argument. Look, being faster than everybody is so much cooler than being stronger than everybody.
I just got CTE.
Like, I am sorry to people who love super strong big boy. It is cooler to be faster. And Derrick Henry is also faster. And that's why Derrick Henry is the actual answer. He is the player you would draft. He is the player you would build around. There is no disputing that. But who do I want to watch? Chris Johnson. I would like to watch Chris Johnson more.
Oh, okay. All right. This is a journey for me here, but I also went to middle school in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
So I will admit that. If you would have told me at any point during my life any human would be on par with Earl Campbell, I would have said not a chance. Earl Campbell is, from an enjoyment standpoint, he is in the Jim Brown, Gale Sayers. I know they're old school, but they are the best running backs maybe ever, based on the defenses are bigger and faster now, which is a thing. But running the football at that time was such an important thing, and Earl Campbell was spectacular. And that is not to diminish anything Eddie George has accomplished, or Lendale White for that matter, or CJ. If you're going to tell me that speed is the thing, the only thing better than speed is being like 4 or 5 inches taller and 40 pounds heavier and still running just as fast. So if you'd have told me that somebody was going to come along and challenge Earl Campbell, I would have told you you're crazy. But I think Derrick Henry's the best running back in franchise history. And I enjoy Earl Campbell more. I think Eddie George was perfect for that team and that offense and that system and that moment in time. And I think CJ was super, super fun to watch. And I was dead wrong about them drafting him. I don't think this guy's got what it takes to be a full-time, sustainable running back in the NFL from a size standpoint. Totally wrong about that draft pick. But the answer is Derrick Henry.
Yes, because we're boring. But if the question is, if you could,
Eddie George was boring.
Eddie George, we are not denigrating how great Eddie George was, but like, if you watch back, probably the best moment in Eddie George's career, which is that touchdown run against the Colts in the playoffs in '99. It's like a 65-yard run and 3 guys catch him. And he rumbles his way in, and like, good for him, the tenacity, the effort. But Chris Johnson and Eddie George are not getting caught there. And for that matter, Earl Campbell probably not getting caught there either. The difference is, I'm asking you guys in the comments, sincerely as fans,
okay,
if you can relive the moments independent of the team's success, and relive the moments of 2009 Chris Johnson, relive the moments of 2020 Derrick Henry, I think in your heart of hearts, you would tell me it was more fun watching 2009 Chris Johnson.
You obviously didn't watch a lot of Earl Campbell in 79 and 80.
You
obviously did not.
I did not watch a lot of 1979 Earl Campbell.
This slander will not stand. Earl Campbell is a far better football player than Chris Johnson. It is not
I don't care.
It's not close.
I'm not talking about success. I'm talking about fun. I'm talking about the pure fun of the zigzag. We all talk about Barry Sanders being the most fun running back ever. It's because he was faster and shiftier than everybody. And Chris Johnson is the closest approximation the Titans history has to that. It's not Derrick Henry running people over. It is not Earl Campbell running people over. It's not Eddie George running people over. It is Chris Johnson being untouchable. Go back and watch his run against the Arizona Cardinals in 2009. Watch the speed he has on that second and third and fourth burst. It is unparalleled. That Derrick Henry speed, watch his run against the Ravens, the walk-off in 2020 in overtime. I've watched that play about 10 times this week. It's really not that cool after the jump cut.
Oh,
It's
stop.
pretty nonchalant. Whereas every time Chris Johnson gets in the open field, it is the coolest thing you've ever seen. I've got people in the comments who agree with me. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Braden.
well, look, I would agree with you, but then we both be wrong. Kenneth says Braden doesn't want to enjoy Earl. He wants to exclude him from Titans history. By the way, DeMarco Murray, also very good player. Like, if you take his entire career into relative account based on what he did here, I mean, he had a hell of a season there in 2016. How about,
but if you want to take relative careers, it's Adrian Peterson.
I cannot believe a fullback. No. Lorenzo White, 1,200 yards. I forgot that Lindell White actually had an 1,100-yard season.
And like 17 touchdowns one year, right? 15 touchdowns?
Well, he had 7 that year for the Titans. I'll double check real fast.
I think
he had,
in 2008, he had 15 touchdowns.
15 touchdowns, 700 yards rushing. I do think Travis Henry's season is very underrated in 1,200 yards. And again, I think DeMarco Murray's underrated. And I think that's it.
That's time.
Earl Campbell is better than Chris Johnson, full stop.
That's time. Chris Johnson over Earl Campbell.
All right, Sinkers Beverages, Tennessee and for good journalism, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, and second set of topics. There we go. All right, so this one is complicated because I worked with Floyd Reese.
Yep.
So I will admit I have bias here, but when there was a debate and a discussion around changing of the guard and changing of the power structure near the end of both of their careers for the Tennessee Titans, and again, there's lots of other stuff here we could discuss with Jeff Fisher, and we're going to talk about Vince Young coming up. But like the overrated, underrated value of Jeff Fisher's consistency, I think Floyd Reese had proven enough that he deserved to be the option. But general managers just don't get chosen over head coaches, especially ones that have been to Super Bowls. So I will admit that I am biased here, and I think that they chose wrong. I think Floyd Reese was a hell of a general manager. I think he had some problems with the cap late in his career that he would admit to, but this one's hard for me to sort of separate my personal feelings about Floyd Reese because I just was around him for 4 years, and I know him too well.
Let me try and phrase it this way to start. If we are taking the sample of everybody who watches 10 or more Titans games a year, how many of them know the name of the general manager in a given year? Half?
Probably more in that moment. But if you ask them right now, who was the GM in 2012? Who was the GM in 2008? Who was the GM in 2002? I don't know if they could tell you the year.
But I'm still even saying in 2002, if you ask who is the general manager, I would bet even in an informed fan base, and I'm not saying the Titans aren't an informed fan base, but generally speaking, about half of your fans are going to know who the general manager is. And just about everybody's going to know who the head coach is. Yeah. From a PR perspective, you have to side with the coach. You just kind of have to. It is... Jeff Fisher, again, had also earned the right, was a really good head coach for that era of the NFL. Braden, you are more privy to the nitty-gritty of what the debates were behind the scenes. You can rehash the short version of the debates if you need to, but just long-term, I believe they probably made the right decision, just because if you fire the most successful head coach in franchise history to retain a general manager, you're alienating a lot of fans who don't care.
I think that's the right nuanced way to look at it, which is that Floyd Reese at that time, it's like Vrabel. At that time, Fisher's tenure here, in my opinion, had sort of begun to run its course. And a fresh start for him and fresh start for the organization is probably the smart thing to do. Whereas Floyd Reese could have kept doing what he was doing for years, because the general manager doesn't necessarily lose a fastball the way you can with coaching. The game changes a lot more for coaches than it does for general managers. I want to get the year correct here. Let's see here. 2006 was his last year. So Floyd Reese was his last year. So I think Fisher, I don't remember when was Jeff Fisher's last season.
2010 would have been his last year.
So
11 was Munchak.
So a couple more years. And I mean, it's hard to argue because that includes CJ's 2,000-yard season. It includes 2 really great teams, 10 wins and 13 wins, the very first 2 seasons immediately after that. I agree with your take. I think Floyd Reese probably still could have been a better member of the organization long term, but you kind of have to side with the guy who got you to the Super Bowl as a coach.
Yeah. And look, 2006 was a strange year for the Tennessee Titans because you have to factor in the whole Vince Young draft situation, which we will get to a little bit later. But who had power dynamic between, we have to throw Bud into this whole conversation. We can't totally exonerate ownership from letting all of this happen. So I don't know. I think that it was a mess. They probably made the right decision. The results bear out that 07, 08, those were very good teams.
Yeah, they were.
That 2009 team, if not for the worst, most devastating start for a brutal schedule to start a season, that 2009 team is probably good enough to make the playoffs as well. It didn't work.
So I asked PK, like, because he covered the team back in those days, because he's ancient, and I wanted to know what like he valued. And there's a couple of them on here we're going to talk about in just a second. But one of the ones, and I think Bud Adams is a factor in the Vince Young conversation. He's a factor in the Floyd Reese conversation, and he's a factor in the Amy Adams Strunk conversation, because one of the ones that we don't have up here that PK mentioned was Bud's succession plan created a lot of talk. He left Tommy Smith to fail when he'd already failed in his football chances, and Bud didn't really like him. So they kind of screwed that up a little bit by giving it to the wrong one. But that one's not as big of a deal on this particular conversation. So there you go. You don't remember the Rustin and Reinfeldt doldrums. We're gonna get to Rustin Webster in just a second. just calm down. All right, next one on the list.
Stopping and resetting. Go ahead.
Should the Titans be using red uniforms? I have a very strong opinion. Go.
I grew up in suburban Georgia. There were no Titans fans around. Everybody I knew owned a red Titans jersey. Just purely anecdotally, people thought they were really friggin' cool, man. Like, do you know how many red Eddie George jerseys I saw kids running around in when I was growing up? People love them. Should they be wearing them? I don't think so. But people think they're really cool if you wear them once or twice a year.
Are you done?
Yeah, that's pretty. I'll defer my time.
Teenage Nick Suss thinks it's cool. That's your argument.
Younger than that.
Oh, okay.
We're talking like 7 years old.
Prepubescent.
Yeah, we're talking like 7 years old. 7-year-olds loved it.
There's a reason that we don't curate museums based on the likes. Yeah. Okay, based on what's popular. We don't. That's not. People in the Hall of Fame are not just popular. It's because they're awesome. And I think the red uniform, and I'm okay with whatever you all are about to tell me in the comment section. I think the red uniform is one of the ugliest Titans uniforms ever put together. It doesn't represent anything about the organization. It reminds me of like a third soccer kit. You know how these soccer teams, European soccer teams, put together their third kit that has nothing to do with their colors, and they just are doing it to make money off of you, which, again, I'm a sucker. I will buy Nashville SC's third kit, or, Arsenal's third kit, or Barcelona's third kit, or whatever, the teams that I like. It's just objectively not an attractive looking jersey. There's a reason not many teams, like Wisconsin does it pretty well, honestly, with bright red. There's a reason, like, it's just not an it makes you angry. Literally, that's what it does to your brain. Red makes you angry. And it would be very, very ugly on the field. Yes, Forrest, I agree with you. Now you and I disagree on this, because I love the Oilers, the baby blues, the love you blues, and you don't necessarily like them. So again, I think the Reds are real bad.
But yeah, I mean, Jack's comment here pretty much nails it down. I didn't know anyone under 12 that had a red jersey. I knew a bunch of people under 12 that had a red jersey. It's great for kids. It is a really good kids jersey.
Hard to argue with that.
And should you be basing the definition of your organization based around what is good for 11-year-olds? I say no. But look, kids loved it. If you're trying to grow a fan base with your organization, the 1999, 2000, 2001 Titans were still a new organization. You're trying to grab fans. And if you have people who are not fans of the sport who like your uniform, that is one way to grow a new generation of fans. So if there is something that can be kid-friendly, I say it is an asset to your organization. Does that mean you should ever wear it? Probably not. But would it be the worst uniform the Titans have ever worn in a game? I don't know. Debatable. Debatable.
Yeah, that one is true. I will also, this is also worth noting, important piece of context. From like 1997 to about 2003 in football, college and pro, and maybe even in real life, fashion, Not good. It's just in general not good. Like the Broncos and the Hurricanes, Miami Hurricanes and the Denver Broncos kind of started a lot of the modernization that turned all these uniforms into XFL looking uniforms. And they have gone back to a little bit more clean, a little bit more simple, a little bit more classic, smooth graphic design lines. I just think not a lot of good stuff culturally happening at that time in terms of like fashion and design and et cetera. So
saying the TRL era might not have been our best guidepost for what we should wear.
Yeah, Woodstock 99.
Break stuff.
Not a success. Not a success. I look, I get it. And also, we talked about this last week on the uniforms, logos, helmets. They're all very beauties of the eye of the beholder. So, but because I have 20 years of graphic design experience at Athlon Sports, my opinion is correct. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is an interesting one because I think in hindsight, it's not even a debate. But I think in the moment, it's a way bigger debate than people realize. Should the Titans have taken Taylor Lewan, number 11 overall in the 2014 NFL Draft?
Is the question you're asking here alternative based on there were other players that people wanted? Or is it based on don't take Lewan specifically because of the personality profile?
I think it was about the questions. It's not necessarily the personality profile. But that was part of it. It's like there was wasn't there an assault charge or some minor incident in college? And I think
fracas of some kind.
Yeah, and I think people were concerned. Like the pet pig was a huge, and I was texting with PK about this, and I was like, yeah, the pet pig was a hilarious storyline that I really remember, but also kind of prescient. And he was like, what? And I was like, you don't remember Taylor Lewan's pet pig that he had in college with the Michigan offensive lineman? It was like a huge storyline during the draft. And by the way, Odell, here's the next picks. Odell Beckham and Aaron Donald were the next two picks. Now that game you could play that game.
Yeah, please don't look at who the picks after Jake Locker were.
Yeah, we don't want to.
Look,
there was a lot more question about taking Lewan in the moment than there ever was after the fact.
Yeah. I will say my anecdotal experience. When the Titans drafted Lewan, I lived next door to somebody who was a student manager at Michigan when Lewan was a freshman and sophomore.
What?
Just a pure coincidence. It is true.
Okay.
I lived next door to somebody, and I remember asking him, like, hey, Titans just picked this guy. What do you think about him? And every single thing he said was exactly the things that have gone on to make Taylor Lewan a crap ton of money. And he said all of them with a negative connotation. Such is the duality of Taylor Lewan. That personality, the way he behaves in the world, the way he sees the world, always going to be divisive. Should they have taken him over Aaron Donald? Hindsight says no. Hindsight says pick one of the three best defensive players in the history of the National Football League. But you also had Jarrell Casey.
Zach Martin was picked three slots later also, by the way. Just
sure. I would rather have a 3-time Pro Bowl tackle than a Hall of Fame.
No, I don't.
Times. Yeah.
If you are having the discussion today, now the other thing is this was Rustin Webster's draft, and nobody trusted Rustin Webster to do anything right at that time. So that was also part of this, which means this might have been one of his best decisions in that situation. He was the GM from 12 to 15, and technically he's the guy who ended up getting Mariota. I think in hindsight, the answer is clearly absolutely. He is a fixture in Nashville culture. He is like, you may not like his shows or his personality type. To your point, divisive. I don't think he's doing anything wrong. Like he didn't really get in any trouble in the NFL other than some again, you may not like
unnecessary roughness penalty.
A couple penalties and you might not like how it ended or whatever, or what he says, but he was a leader, he was vocal, he was a great personality, is a great personality. And I think a hell of a tackle there for a chunk of time. So
we got 90 seconds left. Let's do a quick speed run. Hopkins versus Reese versus Lewan. What you got?
What do you mean?
Best to worst.
Oh, probably Hopkins.
Okay.
Probably.
I don't think there's a wrong answer for any of them. I think I would take Roos, but Hopkins and Roos are really good.
I would have Lewan behind both of them.
Okay. I think we're in agreement there. All right.
Should they have fired Mike Mularkey? And this is one of my favorite. If I look back on my career, and one of the things that I think I got the most correct, because I got Mariota right and then wrong, and I got AJ Brown wrong, and I got Chris Johnson wrong. There's plenty you get wrong in this business. But I remember being on air with Derek Mason trying to convince him for months that this was a 1 step back, 2 step forward proposition. They were moving on from Mike Mularkey despite the success because they knew the game was evolving and moving forward, and Mularkey was kind of what he was, and he was a solid coach for that transitionary period of time, and that Vrabel was going to take them further. And I remember D-Mace coming to me like after the first time the Titans made the playoffs, and he was like, you know what? You were right about that. And getting Derek Mason to say that, I was very proud of that take because I think that's exactly what happened. You took a very big risk to take 1 step back to try to take 2 steps forward, and that's literally what the franchise did.
It was a smart, evolved gamble. Now, are we talking about this because in hindsight the Vrabel teams were pretty good? Yes. That is exclusively the hindsight of they made a good hire and John Robinson made some shrewd general managing moves that built a good roster. All of this comes down to the team was well managed at the time. Now, my big theory about coaching, which you guys have heard me say on the show before, is that unless you are in the top 5% or the bottom 5% of all coaches in the world, you're probably not making as big of a difference as we think you are. Was Mike Mularkey in the top 5 or the bottom 5%? No. Was Mike Vrabel in the top 5 or the bottom 5%? I think for 1 or 2 years, you could have made the argument he was in the top 5%. For the breadth of his tenure, I don't think he was. Was the team winning because of coaching when they went from going 9-7 in 2017 with Munchak to 9-7 in 2018 to 9-7 in 2019? Was coaching the reason they were going 9-7, or was the roster that J-Rob and company assembled the reason? Were the players individually the reason? I will argue on behalf of the players. I will say that no matter who the coaches were, that was a 9-7 football team. Would it have been better if Vrabel was leading it than Mularkey? Yes. But would it have made a difference if Mularkey stayed? No. I think those are still 9-7 football teams, no matter what.
I think it makes a much bigger difference long term.
Long term, yes.
I think they had an opportunity to hire a rising superstar, and they did. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to break some eggs to do that. And I think Mularkey, it was what he was. Here's the problem. I was also the second. I remember hearing in 2014 when they hired him. I remember hearing they're hiring Mike Mularkey. Like I remember hearing like that's just a status quo play. That's like the Jags hiring Doug Peterson. It is a baseline of like, well, we're not going to get worse, but we're not going to get any better. And so I think he was a stabilizing factor, but I don't think he ever was the answer. And you know,
sure,
look, great dude, by the way, great communicator. Love talking to him, but
it's also really funny in hindsight that when we talk about what was passing Mularkey by, what was the game not allowing his team to do that happened with Vrabel, it came down to Arthur Smith, who was a Mularkey guy. Like Vrabel modernizing the offense in a way that Mularkey. I understand this, but like LaFleur took the team from 9-7 to 9-7. It was Arthur's offenses that kind of got the team to that 10-win, 11-win, 12-win reach. And that was a guy who was there the whole time. So is anything preventing Mularkey from promoting him too and the offense is having the same success? I don't know. Vrabel's difference, again, the ability to coach the third and fourth string players who come when the team's injured and you're using 91 players in a season and you're still winning 12 games and you pull Deontay Foreman off the street and it's not much of a drop off of a Derrick Henry. Like there is a lot of stuff that Vrabel did that I do not have confidence would have happened in the Mularkey era. And those are long-term considerations that worked out. But short-term, the players were the players. And I do think the players would have been about as good no matter who their coach was between these two options.
1 step back, 2 steps forward. And
Correct.
Then it ended up being 3 steps and then 4 steps forward. And I don't think there's even a debate here, but that's just my personal opinion. I think the Patriots are going to win a Super Bowl. Under Mike, I think Mike Vrabel will win a Super Bowl as a coach. How about that?
I do not think the Patriots will win a Super Bowl unless Drake May proves he is better than Josh Allen. And I do not think that's going to happen.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think to say that they can only win a Super Bowl if he's better than Josh Allen, I don't think that's fair.
You gotta win your division. Like
not necessarily, but
I think that's the easiest path. That is the one. That is the thing that will make me feel the best about it.
I can't argue that.
Let's talk about Vince Young.
So there's a lot of things we could talk about with Vince Young. I think one of the questions is like you could say, did Bud Adams strong arm Jeff Fisher? Was that the right decision to draft Vince Young? We could say that. We could say did Jeff Fisher sandbag Vince Young while he was the quarterback? And I know Jeff Fisher currently is on a bit of a PR tour against Vince Young. I've heard a lot of things that he said over the years about Vince Young. He's told a lot of stories. I unfortunately, I think Vince Young is the single most unstoppable college force I've ever seen. If you told me I could start a team with any college player that I have covered, which is 2005 to today, I could pick any one player to start a team. My first pick is Vince Young. Do I think Vince Young ever gave himself a chance to be a professional athlete? No, I don't think he did.
You know those conversations people have of like, if you can take any player from a past era into this era, who do you think would be better in this era? Vince Young comes up a lot in that conversation, and I truly don't know if it's a correct take or not. Like, would Vince Young be better today if you could do for him what the Panthers did for Cam Newton and overly simplify the offense to be a one-read passing situation and allow him to run more out of zone read and do all of this stuff? I don't know, because go back and watch those teams from 2006 to 2009. They were running a ton of zone read.
Yeah.
They were doing a bunch of stuff that fit Vince Young. This is not a Mariota situation where you can argue the offense didn't fit his skill set. I think they should have sided with Vince Young. Like, fundamentally, I believe there are three ways you can answer the question, who is the most talented player in Titans history? You can say Vince Young, you can say Derrick Henry, you can be wrong. Like, pure football talent, acumen with the ball in your hand, ability to transform a football team. Vince Young was that kind of transformative presence. And just like earlier, I said, if the PR debate is between a head coach and a GM, you always got to side with the head coach. If the PR debate's between the head coach and a generational quarterback, you got to side with the generational quarterback. Was Vince Young generational? Talent-wise, absolutely. Demeanor-wise, ability to lead a team-wise, up for debate. I wasn't there. I don't want to speak on it. I was just watching from afar. But, you know, it's a talent the team has not captured since.
I don't think there's any debate about the talent. I think if you would have, here's the thing. I think if you put Vince Young in the Eagles offense the last 4 years, I think he would be an extraordinary performer. I think the difference between him and Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts' makeup. Jalen Hurts is as flawed as Vince Young is from a passing standpoint. Not as explosive as a runner, but like has other skills that are kind of on the same kind of level. He's not as talented as Vince Young, but he is wired in a different way that allows him to find success. And Vince Young I don't necessarily disagree with you, because if I say I think Floyd Reese is better than Fisher, then I got to say Vince Young is probably better than Fisher. And do I think Fisher probably got frustrated and didn't behave in a certain way around Vince Young? I absolutely takes two to tango, but Vince Young never tried to be a professional quarterback. He never did the things you have to do to be a professional quarterback. He would go out there as a rookie and not know how to say the play. Like, what do we talk about with Cam Ward? We talk about Cam Ward is in there building at 5 a.m. to make sure he can say the play correctly every time. Vince Young could not get the play out correctly. And then he was so good. And he was so good that he would still no one knew what the play was, and he would still go make a play. That's how good he was. But
again, when we were talking, go ahead.
Well, I'll finish. If he ever did the professional quarterback thing, he might have been unstoppable.
If we were talking about Mariota and talking about remember all these great moments, the comeback against the Colts, the comeback against the Giants, the comeback against the Texans, were in the same month. Like, that's how good he was from the jump. That was November, December of his rookie year.
And pure talent. That was just pure
arguably talent. 3 of the 10 best moments in Titans franchise history. Yeah. And they were consecutive weeks. It is unreal how good he was. He is, without a doubt, the player they should have picked in that moment. I'm not revisionist historying and saying they should have gone Cutler, they should have gone Leinart.
I agree. Vince Young
was the right player.
Yep.
They built an offense around him. It worked. He was a Pro Bowler in year 1. He was the cover of Madden in year 2. He was poised to become the face of the National Football League. And it didn't work out.
Yeah. He did it all based on his just roll the ball out there and wake up, roll out of bed and try. And he was just better than everybody else. So
Madden 2010, Vince Young and Chris Johnson, as fun as you can have playing a video game together. That was really, really fun.
That reminds me of like 07 West Virginia.
Yeah.
In college game where you could just go Pat White and Steve Slayton.
Yeah.
Zone read left, zone read right.
I was running
Owen Schmidt up the middle.
I was running RPOs on Madden 10, and RPOs hadn't even been invented yet. I was just out there having fun.
Exactly right. I used to run that offense on the college game. That was my game of choice, the college game. All right, last one. Best team. I have. There's a variety of answers here, but you go ahead.
My gut is telling me it is the 2000 team that we talked about last week.
Yep, that was my pick.
My heart is telling me the 08 team had some juice, but then I look up and down the roster and think, where did that come from?
No.
Like, where was all the success coming from? That was pure just vibes, I guess. Like, the Titans' defensive line was on the cover of ESPN The Magazine in January of 2009. You had Kyle Vanden Bosch and Albert Hainsworth and Javon Curse, and I am blanking on who the fourth one that made the cover, but you had the cover of ESPN The Magazine proclaiming, are these guys the NFL's real MVPs?
They're pretty good.
That's a really good team. It's probably 2000. I'll hear an argument for 2020 also, or 2021, but it is probably 2000.
So there's only 3 13-win teams, of course, 99, 2000, and 08, the one you're talking about. I think from a talent perspective, 08's not really in the conversation, honestly. The 21 team was a 12-win team. The 2003 team, McNair's MVP year, was also an extraordinarily talented team in 03. So you can I think what makes that team great is a combination of everything, which is talent, statistical productivity, historical significance, and on-field success. So the 99 team, by definition, you kind of have to call the best team because they did the most with it. Obviously, the only thing missing from 2000, the problem with 2000 is they check every box. Historically, one of the greatest defenses, not of the Titans era, but of all time, as we covered last week on the show. It was the Derek Mason 2,600-yard season, all-purpose record setter in the NFL. It was one of Eddie George's best season, if not his best season, running the football. McNair was not an elite player yet, but was pretty good. Javon Curse had 11 sacks. Like that from a talent perspective, and a numbers perspective, and a win-loss record perspective on the regular season, I don't think there has been a better regular season Titans team than 2000. If what matters to you is what do you do with it, then I think you have to go with 99. Or you might even go with, again, like you're not going to pick 2020, or I guess it was 2019, but they were only a 9-7 team that went to the AFC Championship game. So
yeah, I think that
I think it's 99 or 2000. I think it's those two.
The main thing that we can say, the only thing holding the 2000 Titans back from being a generationally remembered great team, is Ray Lewis.
God,
like that is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on it.
It just totally comes down to arguably the best defensive player ever, making a play that is so unheard of. Like, have you gone back and looked at the box score of that playoff loss recently? Like, I'm sure you remember this.
Oh, it's
the Titans outgained them by like 250 yards. The Ravens did not score an offensive touchdown.
I was there at the game.
That was pure domination on the Titans end, and it was a special teams miscue, and it was Ray Lewis stealing a ball out of the air on a pitch play. Like, it is truly, that is the difference between that Titans team winning the Super Bowl, which they very easily could have that year, and being totally forgotten to history. I think that even the 99 team being 1 yard short, I don't think that team was better than the 2000 team.
I think I agree with you. I think I've been to all 3 Ravens playoff losses for the Titans in person. First, you want to know what the first downs were in that game?
Tell me.
23 first downs for the Titans, 6 for the Ravens. 6.
23 first downs against what we consider to be the greatest defense in NFL history.
Dude, they had 85 passing yards and 134 total yards. And that 134 total yards might have been like a good day.
And was that Jamal Lewis's 2,000-yard season? I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Right. Hang on. I think it was 2000. Yeah, because they won the Super Bowl. No. You're right. It was 3 years later. 2000 was 2003. Because I think that's the I think two of the top three MVP candidates were Lewis and McNair, I think, in 03. So, yeah, he had 2,000 in 03. He had 1,300 that year. But, man, 6 minutes, 17-10. 17-10 with 7 minutes to go. Interception for a touchdown.
We're out of time on this. We're out of time on the whole show, but quick, I just wanted to ask you this as the last-minute speed run. Darkest moment, worst moment, most embarrassing moment in Titans history. Off the top of the dome, what are you giving it?
The one that comes to mind was 11 sacks at home to the Ravens in the regular season. Is that even on the ball? Is that like – it's got to be a playoff loss. It's got to be a playoff loss, but I just feel like Mariota taking 11 sacks to the Ravens at home was embarrassing.
That was tough. The ones that came to mind immediately were the Algie Crumpler penalty in that 08 playoff loss to the Ravens, the Rusty Smith game just happening in general, and the time that Bleedy Ray Wilson got juked by Andy Dalton.
So if I think back on Packers games, the worst moments, now that I'm doing this, none of them are regular season games.
Yeah.
My worst moments as a Packers fan were losing to the Broncos in the Super Bowl in '97. And it's frankly the two Giants Super Bowls because Favre lost 2 games at home in Lambeau to Eli in 07 and 11. And
I don't think that was Favre in 11.
No, that would have been Rodgers in 11. You're right. It was both of them. Both of them losing. That's true. Both of them losing because Rodgers won the Super Bowl in 2010. That's correct.
Yeah. And had the best season any quarterback's ever had in 2011.
And the 07 season, the 07 game was like the negative 14 degrees or whatever it was. It was one of the coldest games ever played. But losing that losing to the night, like all of the NFC Championship games they've lost in the last like 10 years. So the thing about that is you start complaining about like 8 or 9 playoff losses at home, and you're like, oh, you're in the playoffs a lot. You're having really great football seasons. So
yeah,
hard to complain. But you're right. The Bengals game is probably pretty bad.
If I'm giving gut instinct, it's the playoff loss to the Ravens in 08. It is the Algie Crumpler penalty. It's the Todd Heap pass on a 4th down where there should have been a delay of game. It is all of that stuff that compounds to you had a 13-3 team with home field advantage that squandered it.
How about I'll go full like righteous glorified like a-hole here. Bud Adams double birding the fans. One of the darkest moments in franchise history.
But Jordan, to counterpoint you here, coolest moment, Cortland Finnegan fight against Andre Johnson. Say what you want. He won the fight because he got the best player in the field kicked off the field.
Yeah. I played basketball with Cortland Finnegan a few times randomly. And Vince Young, how about this? I'll finish up with a Vince Young story. So I played basketball at the Concord Y a bunch during like the 05 to like 2010 era. And I just started working in media, and a lot of Titans would go in there. I started playing ball with like Keith Bullock, and Cortland Finnegan's in there, and Blaine's in there, and all these guys are in there. Cortland Finnegan, by the way, significantly shorter than me, was the easiest 5'9" dunk I've ever seen in my entire life. Just the athleticism was insane, just completely off the charts. And the one person who stepped on the floor who just beat everybody at everything. You could not stop him with the basketball in his hands. You couldn't stop him off the ball. You couldn't stop him shooting. You couldn't stop him driving. You couldn't stop him on defense. Truly, on a court with nothing but NFL athletes, the one human that was just significantly better than everybody else at pickup basketball was Vince Young.
Makes sense.
I've never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it.
We've been doing PTI all day, so let's flip the script. Let's do NFL primetime right quick and end the show with a Berman Jackson bit. Cortland Finnegan from
something state, like Barlow State. Where's he from? Sacramento State.
I thought he went to Tiffin. What am I thinking?
Tiffin. There we go. Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, I was making up words. I wasn't using actual words. From
Tiffin University. This has been very fun, you guys. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. It seems like he went to Stanford. We're both wrong.
I said Barlow. That's close. Barlow's not even a thing. I don't even know.
QC Hawk, we talked about the Conklin option. That was on our list. We had a list of like 23 options or something we were going to talk about. We've got spillover.
Maybe we'll do part two. Hot shots. Part 2. The like not trading this pick and drafting Cam Ward versus trading the pick and drafting Jack Conklin.
Has Braden never had opinions about trading the 25 draft pick? Has that ever come up?
I didn't think they did the right thing. They drafted Cam Ward.
Let's not rehash that argument quite yet.
Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, the Tennessean for good journalism. Thanks for being patient with us and hanging out on a Friday. We do appreciate it. All you guys in the comments were awesome today. As usual, Nick, you were also awesome. And the red uniforms are terrible. So thank you guys all for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you next time. Peace and love, everybody. Have a great weekend.